then a shortfall of 374, you would be at a shortfall of 420. So we'll have that 44,000 less the growth on that 44,000.
Wait a minute. That was, I don't agree with that. You stated, you showed this previous, back on slide number 5, which you showed the 374, which really would have been add 13,000 to that. How do you equate the fact that if we don't keep the millage rate at the same, that the 44,000 is going to cause that to go up?
Okay, let me. The premise on this slide, is this the one you're referring to where I show the 374? No. Or a different slide?
No, this is the one.
Okay. All I did here was in that current revenue column, I took the ad valorem from the pro forma and I increased it by 4%. That's all I did. So if we're going to...
with the current millage rate.
With the current millage rate.
I'm sorry.
So if we drop to the slightly reduced millage rate, we would just take that 44,000 away from 2017 plus the growth. So it would just be $46,000. So you just add that 46 to the shortfall down below.
As a projection.
And it's not a significant number. It doesn't mean that you can't make that decision. I just wanted you to be aware that it will change the number slightly. Just slightly. Yes, Tom?
Do we have a handle on where we think growth might be next year as opposed to where it is this year?
We don't, but the finance conference that I just came from, the Florida, statewide conference, we did bring in an economic speaker, we always do, and they give us great insight into not just, I can't speak specifically of Punta Gorda, but what all the big metropolitan areas of Florida are doing versus what the nation is doing. And the long and short of it is that our growth is going to be less than what you see nationally. Florida is going to come back much slower, and it has a lot to do with the inventory, has a lot to do with the dynamics of being second homes and retirement homes for people. But what they're saying is to expect about 4%. And they did hint maybe 5%, but they were pretty comfortable with the 4.
Okay.
Yes,
Nancy. I understand the math here, and we had quite a good conversation about the terminology of the reserves and how that is a cumulative number. But I think when we look at whatever direction we decide, residents are being hit with increases in a lot of the fees and the assessments, and so we have to really be cognizant of that. And reading the paper that the county is looking at raising the millage rate or doing something. At least it was inferring that might happen, and just to let our because the value of our properties go up, and then we say, oh, good, we get more money. Well, I think we need to show it, be very transparent in what we're doing, so that we're demonstrating that we're trying to do everything we can to keep the costs in line. Just a general statement, because I'm getting feedback from people that they're really concerned.
And I think we probably all are. I've asked if you don't mind putting that on the Elmo. It's the side, that side. I just want to call everyone's attention to what our property taxes, what this ad valorem actually does. It only covers 33% of our city services. So what we're looking at is what we're looking at right now in terms of paying for through our millage. We only covers 33% of our revenue.
Right, but we're getting
services.
We're raising the sanitation rate. Canal assessment rates are going up. I mean, it's a cumulative kind of thing. It is a cumulative
kind of thing. But I guess I wanted just to show this one more time, because sometimes we forget. We think all our services are provided through the ad valorem, and it's only a very small segment. And obviously, as this shows here, we do have the other local option sales tax, our utility taxes, the communication tax, franchise fees, and prior year reserves are used to make sure that this happens. So just as a clarification. Okay, so where are we now?
Well, would you like us to include a millage rate in the agenda item or leave it blank?
In the agenda item?
For
ne-
next
For July
week.
8th.
We can either leave it blank in your
And you'll
agenda
insert it.
packet for next week.
Well, since we have 2 other council members not present at this point in time, I think I'd like to hear from them as well. So maybe we'll leave it blank at this point in time until we meet, till we're all here. Is that agreeable?
Yeah, I'm fine, unless you want to just, use 2 of these as examples. We have 2 here, the existing one plus the 3.786, 1786.
Tom?
We could just leave it blank. Why is there a need for showing one versus the other?
Just put in the agenda item so people
We can
know.
do that. We could, either one or the other. I'm fine with that, yeah. I would, we're
Well-
talking about either the 3.1969 or the 3.1786
Yes.
and ruling out the rollback rate. So
Yes.
I'm.
Yeah, I would rule out the
fine.
rollback rate, that's not realistic.
Okay, I'm
All
fine
right,
with
I'll
that.
tell you what, why don't we, we'll just use the 3.1969 just for the agenda item.
Dave? I mean, Mr. Drury, Finance Director.
For the record, Dave Drury, Finance Director. The agenda item, I'll put in the 3.1969, which is the current rate, and then that can be adjusted downward or upward in July 8th, but that'd be fine. We'll do that, Howard, and then we'll see where we go. Is that okay?
So it can be,
I'll put it in the reso, and if we decide to change, we'll just change it.
In other words, you can establish whatever millage rate you want.
I
Sure.
was suggesting
July
both.
8th.
Up to 10
but then
mils. You
once
can go
we
up to
put-
10 mils, so if you'd like to
I was
really get us some money.
I was suggesting both, I wasn't suggesting.
What?
Well, you can't put.
I can't
we
put
have
2
to- we have
numbers
to put a
in the
number
resolution,
We have to put a number in the resolution,
or leave it blank.
or leave it blank.
Then I would prefer to leave it blank.
Okay, we've
I
left it
think
blank
I would
before, too.
prefer that not to give an insinuation that we're going for one or the other at this point then.
Okay.
that's fine with me. Is that all right with
Well,
you,
if
Tom?
we leave it blank, is there any prospect that people could interpret that as it could be going up? I wouldn't want that to happen.
If we
I
wanted
have
to
in
cover-
there the-
If we wanted to cover the actual costs, the 311,000, and try to bring us in parity finally
Mhm.
with revenue and expenses, it would go up a little bit.
I'm not in favor of the millage rate going up.
So do you want to leave it blank, or do you want to?
I would like to see it at the 3.1969.
Okay, well, we can always, and we can still adjust
We
it.
could still adjust
Yes,
it
you
We
can.
can still
if we need
adjust it
to,
at
yeah.
that time.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, I'll put that in the reso and in the cover sheet.
And if I might, just a clarification that I got earlier, is that the tax reductions in Tallahassee with regard to communications taxes that were reduced for cell phones and so on, that will not have an effect on us locally.
No, not the local part of the bill, the state part of the bill, yes.
So that revenue that we had been getting will still be.
I can tell you, however, that the communication tax is not a very stable tax for us right now, and we have seen some decline in it, but we think it has a lot to do with the way they're bundling, and some things become taxable or not taxable depending on the way they bundle. So it's a difficult revenue source for us to predict, and so we try to be conservative with it.
Well, I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to have to make up any shortfall created by the state.
We are not aware that the state has impacted the local share of it with their decision to cut theirs.
Okay.
Did Rachel have anything
Mr.
else?
Kinnick, if I could just ask for one more clarification, and that is that we are using some of our projected excess reserves to balance the budget,
Yes.
in
we know that.
addition to consideration of millage rate. Okay.
I guess that's what I was trying to point out.
Thank you.
You know, that we are using, again, those reserves, 311,000, then to balance 2016. Thank you. Okay. All righty. Okay, moving on then. We now are up to appropriation of funds for park improvement projects.
We are proposing to use park impact fees for 3 projects. One is the Linear Park Fitness Zone Phase 2, which will be more aerobic and strengthening and endurance equipment, much more than the passive equipment you see in the first phase. We have had no donations, no large donations for this one, so we would like to move forward. It's very, very popular. We'd like to complete it on the 2 artificial turf areas between Marion and Olympia along the linear park. And by appropriating park impact fees, we can get this thing go through procurement and probably within 3 months have this thing put into the ground. We would also like to do some hardscape improvements to Nature Park, which has also become a lot more popular. We want some ADA accessibility, picnic tables, benches, trash receptacles, and what have you. That's the first area. We'd like to put some improvements there and some additional benches for Harbor Walk East. That's the Mary Street overlook, which is we have the cut through now looking through to the harbor. These are appropriate uses of park impact fees. Councilmember Kiesling is in support of the park impact fee plan. I don't know about the vice mayor. Well, I do, but actually I do. Based on our agenda meeting individually, the vice mayor is in support of the park impact fee.
As we look at these, and I had talked with Howard about this also, we're looking at trash receptacles, and we keep promoting recycling in our city, and yet our receptacles do not have the combination of trash and recyclables. And I think that as we put more in, we should be doing both. And I'd like to make that as a recommendation, so as we move forward with our park improvements and any of these things, that we find some nice receptacles that can combine both trash and recyclables. Doesn't have to be glass, plastic, et cetera, because we can combine all of those. But I think, again, we're promoting it within our homes and businesses. We should be promoting it in our parks. Is that agreeable?
I would like to see us move forward with that. I think it's a good
That's a
idea.
good idea.
Thank you. Fair.
And do we have any issues with the appropriation of funds for these?
I'd move approval.
Just a question, where are we in the overall status of park impact fees? What kind of numbers are we looking at, or what availability of those funds do we have?
We have over $100,000 accumulated, so I don't have the exact number on me, but we're well within our target. We have to use those within a certain time frame.
Okay, I think Green Thumbs would be thrilled with the park improvements that are slated for Nature Park. I mean, so I think it's great.
And we're all going to go out and use the exercise equipment, right? Well,
Once we
maybe.
get it in.
Maybe, okay. So do we have a motion?
I just made it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the appropriation of funds for park improvement projects. All in favor?
Aye.
Then unfinished business, new business, San Sebastian Harbor wastewater expansion.
Good morning. Tom
Morning.
Jackson for the record. We bring to you today a concept plan, and our goal is to make you aware of this project and then get direction from the City Council to do some more work on it. We've got a lot of work to do, but this is just the very preliminary information for you. San Sebastian is a neighborhood that is, and if Steve, you'll point on there where Pinch-A-Penny is. They're kind of behind Pinch-A-Penny off US 41. They are in the county. They are obviously in our utility service area. And they are a water customer, but they do not have sewer. They are currently on septic tank. The project would be to change them from septic tank and put in gravity sewer and connect it via a pump station to our force main. We were approached by a couple of residents of San Sebastian that wanted to do this project. First of all, they asked us if it could be done, and if it could be done, how much it would cost. And so what I'm bringing you today is the project concept and some preliminary costs for your consideration. And I have to get my notes here. Bear with me one second. In City Ordinance 1363 Section 3, Paragraph K, states, and this is all of that I'm going to show you today are in your packet, that the city may establish a special assessment by ordinance to specifically benefited properties within the described portion of Charlotte County to accomplish construction, extension, or improvements to the wastewater system. So the city has the authority to, in conjunction with the county and through our finance department, to develop a special assessment to pay for this sewering district. So that is allowed. And you do these special assessments quite often for public works and other functions of the city. And you have done them in the past for utility projects, but not during my tenure, so it's been quite a while. So I'm learning this as well. And then secondly, I'll show you where we are in the process in terms of what the steps are involved. And Steve Adams, the utility engineer, has actually done all of the legwork on this with the residents, determining the process and the process steps. And you'll see on the Elmo that we've identified 9 process steps, and that is the first being a discussion of the process with the special assessment method, identifying the project limits, and then determining a preliminary cost. And that's what we're here today to also show you is the preliminary cost. So see, we're just starting. We're actually in step 3 of 9. The second set of steps would include the big one that everybody has a question for, and that is to obtain community support or the community will. And that is up to the residents themselves or the homeowners association to determine if there is a will to do this project, and people are aware of our cost estimates. We won't have a final cost, obviously, until we design this and we go out on the street to bid this, and make sure that the majority of the people are on board with this process. This is a voluntary thing in the city of Punta Gorda. We're not forcing anyone to go on sewer. This has been related to us as the potential will of the people. And then finally, I'll put up on the screen, if I may, Steve has worked out based on very recent and similar projects that the county has done. We've actually used their line item costs to identify, including the abandonment of the existing sewer or septic tank, what we think the cost for this project would be per homeowner. And today, before we expend any more time and we go out and have the homeowners, we do a poll to collect the homeowners' will. We just need your permission to continue with this.
Comments? I think this is excellent that they're going to be coming off of septic. I mean, this is wonderful, and as long as our city is able to accommodate them, I think we should move forward. Any comments, Nancy?
Yeah, I think that it's, before we expend any more time, that we do need to get the will of
Yes.
the resident. But I also would like to suggest that they are contiguous with the city in one portion of the property. So if you look at that, I think, David, you could see that they are connected to Burnt Star Isles. And if they were to annex into the city, their water and sewer rates would go down.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be included in the presentation to the residents of what the potential costs to them over the long term could be. That there's a
Yes, as a point of fact. And we will work with them to help develop the questionnaire. We will model this, and we'll certainly include that information as well. Yes.
Other question is, Mandalay, looking at the map, I could not tell, is the street Mandalay included?
It is not,
okay.
I'm looking at Steve, it is not part of this project. They have not expressed a will to.
Okay.
It's not part of the San Sebastian subdivision.
Gotcha. Unfortunate, but.
And there are residents of San Sebastian here that would answer any questions you folks may have. In fact, we've been working with Butch from the very beginning on this. Or I'm sorry, Dan. Yeah, Butch is out of town.
Well, I would also emphasize to them, the residents, that not only would their water and sewer rates go down, but their taxes would go down. Their assessments would go away. So there's a whole, you actually would save money by annexing into the city.
Yes.
So.
And again, they appreciate certainly the value and the impact to their property values of having centralized sewer because they have water. You know, and so all of these are just pluses to that,
But
absolutely.
I would include that in the discussion.
We will, we will.
Or Nancy will be there with you.
Very good.
Add that.
I'm really
We
hot on
invite you.
annexation, can you tell?
Tom?
Tom, can we look into grant opportunities that might be
And
available for them
we're doing that as well. We
our-
learned about just very recently some potential grant opportunities, and we will be investigating those,
Fine,
yes.
that's terrific.
Again, these are very preliminary costs based on the work, this identical work we've seen done in Charlotte County. The final cost, we won't know until we actually put this out on the street and bid it, and we're a long way from that step.
And Tom, what would the cost, the approximate cost of replacing a septic system? What would that be relative to hooking up to, any idea what that might be?
I don't know unless Steve has a,
Steve Adams. We don't have any real data on that. It has to be every bit of 6,000 to 8,000.
I would imagine more than that.
But I don't know.
I would have thought more than.
We would have to
as
ask the
well,
septic contractor.
We
We
have
have
a
a
number.
resident, so maybe they know. Could be considerably more.
so it's a resident saying they had a neighbor that had it done, and it was 18. And the reason we hedge on that from our position is the state and the county has wavered a couple of different times as to the requirements. If the intended state laws were upheld where they went to the advanced treatment, which is required by state law that close to a canalway, yes, it could be very, very expensive, but we have not seen the county force that on people. So it could be as high as 18, yes,
So this may be a very cost-effective
Yes.
manner for them to.
in the long run, especially when you add in the benefits. Yes.
And
All
they get-
right, so where are we? Can we have a motion?
We don't need a motion, we just need to know if we should
Consensus.
keep going.
Oh,
Go for
I
it.
would think definitely
Yes,
keep going.
absolutely.
Okay, because as I
Great.
outlined, we're on step 3 of about 9 steps. At this point, we'll go back to the homeowners and do a poll and determine what their will is, and then if their will is to proceed forward, then we'll need to get our finance folks involved, because they'll have to help us determine what the costs are, you know, what impacts to the costs would be in terms of borrowing money and the tax rolls and things like that. Yes.
You might also say that annexation is not dependent on whether or not they implement the sewer system. They could annex in
Well, yeah.
anyway and get to work with all of us and all of our wonderful staff, so.
Very good.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our next item is the offer to purchase 507 Nesbitt Street, which is our former recycling center property.
Yes, we received an offer, which is kind of surprising, because we haven't received any offers lately. $125,000 to purchase the former recycling site. It's based on as-is. The purchaser knows full well that we already did a Phase 1 audit. There was already a Phase 1 audit done. We as a city have no intention of going further with a Phase 2. We discussed that. And that's why the previous purchaser backed away. So it's contingent on the owner knowing that. Unless council changes their opinion, we have no intention of doing a Phase 2. But based on the fact that it's $125,000, which is a little less than the appraised value, but close enough, knowing that we're not moving forward with any Phase 2 whatsoever, we have, as a city, we have no use for the property. The owner, the new purchaser, if it works out, is looking at opening up a nursery. So based on those conditions, now they are here if they want to comment on it.
Questions? Tom, Nancy, questions?
No, not at this time.
I'm fine, I support it. That's great.
I support it.
Then we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the purchase offer at 507 Nesbitt Street. All in-
As is.
As
As is.
is. That's right, as is. No changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed, so
We have
We
to
have
move
the-
the oysters.
got to move, yeah, oyster,
Well, let's go through the due diligence
Diligence.
period and
okay.
we'll work with Shinep and,
Did Rachel have anything on that? I should have asked you beforehand.
yeah,
okay?
she, her only comment was, she doesn't remember council's direction of ever doing a phase two, and she's right. We had no intention of doing a phase
Right.
two. She was not in support of it. We had to go to a phase two.
Right, okay. Recommendations from city officers or city manager?
I have none.
Have none. Our city attorney?
Yes, as you may recall, we were scheduled to have an administrative trial tomorrow on the city's challenge of the county comprehensive plan. We were engaged in taking depositions of our respective witnesses last week in anticipation of the trial. And I must say that Tom Jackson and Joan LeBeau acquitted themselves extremely well on behalf of the city. We had done a lot of research in preparation for the hearing, and I felt like the city's position, as it was alleged, was a supportable position. We didn't see any surprises during the course of discovery. And before we got deeply involved in further depositions by the county of our witnesses, the county asked if we would be amenable to postpone the trial in an effort to try to reach a settlement. The proposal was that one of the mines had hired consultants to do a report to try to satisfy us that the mines would not have any impact to Shell Creek. And of course, we needed time to review that, so that's why they agreed to continue the trial. We don't have a date yet, but we for the continuation, but we do have a tentative meeting to meet the week of July 20th to go over the report that was provided to us and discuss potential settlement. I've presented that report to our experts and our professionals for their comments, and would have them back in time for the meeting. My preliminary review of the report does not allow me to conclude that I would agree with the consultants that there would be no impact to Shell Creek, but I'm keeping an open mind and waiting to hear from our consultants. But the main thing is that tomorrow's trial has been postponed, and we'll have an opportunity to try to settle, which is what we asked for at the very beginning.
This is good. This is very good, thank you.
Thank you for your efforts and
Yes.
good job.
Very briefly, you may be aware of the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court has rendered a decision regarding ordinances relating to signs. This was a case out of the town of Gilbert in Arizona. And the Supreme Court made it very clear that any sign code that distinguishes between the content of the sign is unconstitutional. That's something that I have been warning the city about, primarily because the federal courts that govern our jurisdiction, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal, has been taking the same position that the Supreme Court just came to for some time now. What impact that's going to have on us and what we need to do with respect to our sign code, which I believe is not conforming to the decision of the Supreme Court, I may have a better grasp on how municipalities in Florida are being advised when I attend my conference next week, which is the annual Municipal Attorneys Conference. So,
But from what you're saying, though, you have been counseling us to, again, be very careful in terms of determining signs based on content. So we have not been doing that, but you're saying our ordinances are...
well, you know, we've been doing it, but doing it in a way that we could at least sort of justify, hopefully, the way we've done it. But the rest of our code is problematic. Our code is not different than most
Okay.
other codes, and I don't know that there's even a legislative fix for this. The bottom line is that either we are going to, and we'll still be able to regulate the size of the signs, the location of the signs, timing of the signs, but we can't differentiate between different types of signs based on the content or who's going to be presenting a message on that sign to have differential treatment. For example, you can't allow for a political sign for a duration that might be longer or shorter than you would have for a garage sale sign or a directional sign to a church, or, you know, it's just, it makes the standard regulation of signs that's been around for a very long period of time now very problematic. And the Supreme Court says that to make a decision and differentiate between signs based on the content, such as a political sign versus a directional sign versus a church sign, is all a violation of First Amendment freedom of speech rights.
Interesting.
So,
So you either have no signs or lots of signs.
am I hearing that we should put off, if it's scheduled on an upcoming agenda, a discussion on barber pole signs until you come back from your,
Yes, I would say.
You know, we tried to get through a meeting without discussing signs.
Signs.
We just couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the work that you're doing on the mining issue.
It's,
Appreciate it.
it will be interesting to see what happens the next time. I just don't see where what they've presented actually addresses the impacts we're concerned about,
Okay,
but we'll see.
thank you. City Clerk.
Yes, under boards and committees, announcements of vacancies. We still have 2 3-year terms for alternates on the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. Under nominations, we have 2 3-year terms on the Building Board, and we have 3 eligible applicants for nomination. If I could get a move.
Move to nominate all.
Thank you. Also under nominations, we have 2 3-year terms on the Code Enforcement Board, and we have 9 eligible applicants for nomination.
Nominate
Goodness.
all.
nominate them all.
It's a popular board. Okay. We have an unexpired term on the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. Mr. John Pryor has expressed an interest in serving. If you'd like, since he's the only eligible applicant, you can nominate and appoint at this time.
Move
That
to
would be in the form of a motion.
Move to nominate and appoint.
Second.
Moved and seconded to nominate and appoint. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
And
you.
Mr. Pryor is here. He actually came in right after we had the opportunity to introduce
Introduce.
board members, applicants, so.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, now under appointments, we have an unexpired term on the Building Board. I have voting forms for you.
Did you miss the Planning Commission?
And you're voting for one.
Did you miss the Planning Commission? We had nominations on the Planning.
Oh, did I miss it? I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Thank you. That's under nominations. We have 1 3-year term on the Planning Commission and 3 eligible applicants.
We
Nominate all.
Thank you. Okay. And now we'll move to appointments for the Building Board.
And the appointee is Janet Culp.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more under appointments for the Firefighters Pension Board. The board voted to reappoint Robert Amick as their 5th member. We need a motion from City Council to actually approve that appointment.
Motion to approve the appointment of Mr. Amick.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the appointment of Mr. Amick. All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have.
Mayor, one further thing, if I might.
Mm-hmm.
It was very helpful to have the access that we have to the Charlotte Harbor National Estuaries Program folks, because at a very short period of time, they were willing to assist us in expert testimony at the mine hearing. And their expertise, particularly with respect to the issues that were being presented, I think would have really underscored our concerns. And when you look at all of the reports that the county has presented to not only Swift Mud, but themselves in the, it seems like the biological side of things is greatly missing. So we've got that covered.
Wonderful, wonderful. I've just been so delighted that they're with us. I'm thinking that we should be doing more projects along our harbor with them.
Well, they actually have helped. There's an issue with a canal. It's not really a canal, a drainage ditch in Burnt Store Meadows that the residents have been complaining about, water collecting, stagnating, thinking that it's because when Burnt Store Road was widened that there was a damming effect of some riprap.
Mm-hmm.
When in effect what's going on is that's the water level, and that the drainage ditch is, the water should be there, but what's happening is they're throwing all the lawn clippings and things into the water, and it's causing the decaying material. It's an anaerobic process. Sure. That then the decaying material develops into muck in the bottom of it, which then causes the decay and the algae forming. And so when I had contacted Dr. Beaver, she said, well, there was another canal up in Venice where the similar thing had happened, and this is how they cleaned it up. And so now, because of the recommendation from Shinep, that the Burnt Store Meadows Homeowners Association realizes that this is a problem that they need to solve and that they can solve, and that they're going to work on it. So
Wonderful.
it's that Shinep provided really what is a more permanent solution than trying to seek a government type of a
Good.
solution. So
Very,
it's good.
very good, very good. Policy and legislation. I had just two things. I did want to mention that I reached out to Reverend Lewis Anderson with regards to what has happened in South Carolina with the murders of those many people. And as we emailed back and forth, talked about we need to do maybe something more in our community. And I said, so we're suggesting a maybe more general open meeting. And I said I would, again, speak with Commissioner Truex, and I did, and he's also now in communication with Reverend Anderson. There is a meeting on August 3rd in which the task force gets together, and it's a task force of city, county, our sheriff's department, police department, along with the pastoral community, to talk about issues related to our youth, race issues, et cetera. And so at that meeting, Commissioner Truex will bring up, and I was hoping to attend, I'm not going to be able to. I believe that Vice Mayor Kim Devine will be able to do that.
Sure.
So she had already agreed to do that, so that we can then, they will talk about what that bigger meeting should look like, and maybe have that in September. So that, again, we can have an open, public meeting, which I think is important for our community. We have been blessed to have such wonderful police and good interactions with our community, but we need to keep it going.
Mhm.
So, and again, that's related to our peace and unity issue.
Thank you for doing that.
With regards to last Saturday, I had an opportunity to attend the Amateur Radio's Field Day. And I think, you know, we forget that these individuals who work the ham radios are our first communicators when we have a disaster, or could very possibly be. And they did this, again, test. Within 5 hours, they had their own antennas. They even used a bamboo pole as an antenna. They have, I mean, it's just amazing. But within 5 hours, they were communicating around the country and world. So I just give them kudos for, again, being there for us in times of disaster. So just wanted to mention that they're doing an excellent job. Tom?
I'm just very excited for our community and and again, getting the benefit of the funding from Tallahassee. And again, would like to thank everybody involved in the process. I think it's just wonderful. And I'd also like to acknowledge our colleague, Rachel Kiesling. She was the one, if we recall, that brought to our attention that we should seek funding for the Vietnam Wall. And it just worked out great, and I'm just very appreciative. That's it.
That's great. Yes, thank you for the congratulations. It's quite humbling to get reelected without having to actually go through an election process, so I'm very honored. And I just wanted to make a suggestion, as I've sat here in this meeting today and tried to watch stuff on the screen, it's blurry. And so I'd like to let Brad know that if they can do something with the IT to,
you mean the screen
yeah,
there?
I kept looking and saying, what's wrong with my glasses? And it's not my glasses, it's the screen, because everything is just fine on the tablet. It's the monitors here that are just, it's hard for me to
I believe we're
look
scheduled
at.
to get
so-
new monitors, larger, that's what I've been told, larger, new, so.
So,
When we
hopefully
come
that
back, we're going to have gifts in front of us. It'll be wonderful.
ooh. So,
Upgrading our activities. Okay, we have citizens' comments on any issues that you wish to bring before council. Mr. Rose isn't going to pop up?
No?
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 Amazing, amazing. No citizens' comments. All right, then, this meeting is adjourned.
Awesome.